Amazon has lots of security standards, attestation standards, compliance rules and regulations that they follow. And the main one that they follow, kind of the bedrock certification, is ISO 27001. This is a security management standard that is going to specify how security controls, securing of data, access to resources is followed. So there's certain rules and regulations that you must follow to get the approval of ISO 27001. The auditors come in and they'll evaluate the security risks for the data storage, for the compute, for the services, and say yay or nay. Every year they're going to come in and check out that you match up with the standards that you say that you're adhering to. Another popular standard that is adhered to by a lot of companies is SOC 2, and this is a service organization standard that might be SOC 1 or SOC 2 as it applies to cloud. And ultimately, this is a statement of control that says, we audited Amazon and they meet our service organization standards for security controls. If you want to look at the SOC 2 standard, you have to first of all sign up to Amazon as a customer, check off the NDA, and then you can read the reports and see if you like the levels of security that the auditors found. You also might need to follow PCI DSS Level 1, which is the payment card industry data security standard. And if you're holding on to cardholder information, you're processing, storing, or transmitting this data, well, it's sensitive, and they want to ensure that you're actually handling this information properly. So regardless of where you are industry-wise, you'll have rules and regulations that you've got to consider when starting to operate in the AWS cloud. Let's look at an example of a logging requirement. According to the payment card industry, reference 5.2, we need to ensure that all antivirus mechanisms are currently actively running and generating audit logs. Well, Amazon allows you to generate audit logs for compute systems, and they can be stored in S3, so we can cover that standard. What about the Service Organization Controls 2 for SOC 2? 3.13 says there's got to be procedures that exist to identify, report, and act upon system confidentiality and security breaches. Well, we have CloudWatch, the monitoring service, and we have CloudTrail that can track anything that happens in our account. Then we've got FedRAMP, Rule AU-3, which states the information system has to produce audit records that contain sufficient information to establish what type of event occurred. Again, CloudTrail can give you complete details as to what happened, where did the end user log into, what was their IP address, lots of details. So Amazon has covered logging requirements for these three examples. If I'm protecting my logs because I'm following a compliance standard, I probably am going to have it encrypted. I can do that at Amazon. I also can define who can access the logs through IAM security. The logs are stored in an S3 bucket, so I can define a bucket policy as to who can access those actual logs. If I store something in Glacier, which is the archived area of S3, I can also enable a vault lock policy, which states whatever I want it to state. For example, it could be a worm policy. Write once, read many times, but you can't take off that lock. So you'll follow internal rules, corporate rules, probably a combination of those two, and potentially government rules based on the country that you're operating in, and you'll have to figure out how this fits with what you want to do in the cloud. When I'm looking at the compliance standards of a log file, typically you're going to need to store those logs for a long period of time, at least a year. And this relates to PCI DSS, SOC 2, and ISO 27001. Of course, we can do this at AWS because we can store logs forever. We can store them in S3 buckets, or we can archive them in S3 Glacier for as long as we want. So when I'm choosing to start at AWS, I pick my location, my region, and it matches up with what I need for data security and residency, i.e. location. And it also needs to match my compliance and sovereignty rules for my data. I also have the ability of multiple data centers, i.e. availability zones to choose from. I choose the region, and then I have the availability zones within that region to design my appropriate application standard. I also have considerations for sharing or not sharing my compute that's stored on a particular network in my account. The images that make up my compute servers, the AMI images, I can control those AMI images by having them stored in a particular region. I can also utilize private network connections for my entire application stack, and I can decide on the levels of data encryption. So I've got lots of possibilities to be able to adhere to what the government, the company, and the industry dictates that I have to follow when I'm operating at AWS.